Open gate is overhyped, and I'm going to die on that hill. Yes, there is a use case for people who use anamorphic lenses. Makes all the sense in the world. So we're not talking about those folks. Outside of that, open gate is overhyped. And the reason why I say that is because there's not really anything that open gate brings that you couldn't already do. Now we're going to jump into that. But before we jump into that, let me address how I'm holding this mic and how I do not understand the point of why people hold mics like this. I like my hands to be free. If you watch my videos, you know I move my hands a lot. I talk with my hands. I do not see the point of holding a mic when I could just clip it onto my shirt. But I'm committed to doing it this way for the duration of this video. So it is what it is. Now back to it. One thing that I have really noticed when I see videos, reels, any type of content with people talking about open gate is that they make it seem like not everybody, okay? Now I shouldn't even have to say that because obviously when we talk about stuff on this platform, we're not talking about 100% of the people. There's always exceptions. There's always nuances. We know that, okay? I don't know why I have to say that, but there's always somebody in the comments that's trying to lecture me like I don't know what I'm talking about, okay? But people talk like open gate is some mythical thing to where you can just be as loose and as free as you want to be in how you record, and then you can take that footage into post and you can reframe it however you want, and you're going to be able to get your horizontal content, and you're going to be able to get your vertical content, and it's just this amazing thing. And they be acting like you don't have to be just as thoughtful with OpenGate as you will without OpenGate. What you can do with OpenGate, you've always been able to do. If you simply back up and frame, and you know how you want to frame, and you shoot in 4K, you can get your horizontal, you can get your 1080 vertical out of it. Obviously, you got to know what you would want to be in the vertical, so that way you back up far enough to be able to frame it accordingly. But the same thing applies with OpenGate. Like, it's not like you can just film however you want and then after the fact say, yeah, I want this vertical frame and I want it to be the person's full body, and magically you have their full body. You still would have had to have known that when you were filming. I get it. OpenGate gives you some extra headroom, and that does make a difference. And also, I get that you can have your horizontal and your vertical in the same resolution. Of course, when you're doing just the regular non-open gate, you know, you're filming in 4K, so you can get your 4K horizontal, but your vertical is going to be 1080. Most of the time, when you're doing vertical content, it's for social media. Social media is 1080. Now, I already know devil's advocate, or the person that's always finding some reason to support their decisions and what they like to do. You're going to say, well, I like my vertical to be in 4K because, you know, even if I'm exporting it to 1080, I can crop and da-da-da-da and all that. I get it. It's a valid point. It's a very convenient point for y'all that there are some benefits to OpenGate. That's not my issue, though. My issue is how so many people, first of all, how so many people all of a sudden need OpenGate, and it's just this thing that it's like, you know, man, cameras need to have it, and if they don't have it, they're trash. Meanwhile, OpenGate had been around for a while, and it wasn't until, man, maybe it was Nikon that came out with the ZR that had OpenGate, that now all of a sudden OpenGate is just this thing that everybody has to have. And I really think the driver was, you know, Nikon had it, Sony cameras didn't really have it. So you know how y'all Sony users are. When y'all don't have something, y'all start crying and complaining and all that type of stuff. It is what it is. People make it seem like it's groundbreaking, like it's game changing. There's nothing that you can do aside from anamorphic. Okay, we already know there's that big benefit with anamorphic. There's nothing that you're doing with OpenGate that you could not have already been doing. You could back up and frame and still get your horizontal and your vertical out of your 16:9 footage. So everything that you're talking about with OpenGate, you could have already been doing. So OpenGate makes it a little bit more convenient. You get your headroom, you get your resolution. With that comes bigger file sizes, though. So if you already could do it, and it's just something that makes it more convenient, that's not groundbreaking. That's not a make or break, you know. And I know y'all like to say, It's not about if we need it or not. It's, you know, what the manufacturer should just put it in the cameras. They should just put it in the cameras. But it's like if you don't have it, life goes on. And more than likely, you're going to continue to do the same things that you were doing. And if you have open gate, you're probably not going to use it nearly as much as you complain about it on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Threads and all of those things. I think you're doing more complaining there than you'll ever actually use OpenGate. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I got a light stand out there. And so the way that I'm going to do this non-scientific test, and hopefully the wind is not too bad, is I'm going to do photo mode first because that's going to give me 3x2. So that would be no different than OpenGate video, 3x2. So I'm going to do photo mode, take that picture, and then I will switch to video mode and see how much further back I have to move to be able to frame it the same. Now, all right, we're putting the mic back in my hand. Okay, so I had to back up 5.5 feet. 5.5 feet. Okay. Now, obviously, there may be times when you don't have 5.5 feet. So I've never said that OpenGate didn't have its benefit. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure when I was in my office, I said that it has its benefits. You might not always have 5.5 feet, the same way that sometimes we shoot with a 35 or a 24 instead of a 50 because we know we're not going to have the working distance. You may not have 5.5 feet. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate is that we can do the same thing. OpenGate gives me 5.5 feet. If I'm in a situation where I don't have 5.5 feet to give, then obviously OpenGate is going to be beneficial, advantageous. But you can still get the same thing if you have the working distance. So again, I still will die on the hill that OpenGate is overhyped. Overhyped doesn't mean that it doesn't have its place. It just means that you guys are putting so much behind it and making it seem like it's just the latest and greatest best thing in the world, when really it's just giving you a little. It's giving you something that you already could do, and it's making it a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient, maybe a little bit more efficient, maybe. That's it. Still overhyped. I'm on that hill. Fight me in the comments. No, I don't. I'm not fighting in the comments. I don't care that much at all.